And just in regards to the increasing economic linkages within and between Asian countries, I'm just curious how much of that trade is priced in dollars still today, and how that's kind of shifting going forward, and all of the parties being willing to price in something other than dollars, how that plays out kind of over time.
Right, and there, clearly the shift is in the direction of more multi-currency baskets, trade-weighted reserve holdings by central banks and sovereign wealth funds. Some have publicly announced that, others do so more cautiously. But I think trade-weighted baskets is a legitimate position for countries to have, especially if you're trading more and more with China. China has, of course, been on a charm offensive, and obviously with CBDCs as well, trying to increase the reliability, the liquidity, the efficiency of trading in RMB. Commodities markets will be a factor. I mean, to the extent that countries become less and less reliant on importing oil that has traditionally been priced in US dollars, or if the denomination of that energy trade, if there is a petro RMB, a petro rupee, and so forth, that's going to affect countries' decisions about the extent to which they want to hold dollars. We have to remember that the incumbent position that the US dollar has held isn't necessarily the right or sensible one. It's the one that we're most accustomed to, so therefore we view any challenge to it as being, in a way, revolutionary. But we shouldn't actually view it that way. We should view it as evolutionary, because in a way, it's very ironic. North America is the most autarkic continent, right? North America represents less than 14% of global trade. So it's inevitable and logical that we'll find ways, hopefully stable ways within certain currency bands, crypto instruments, CBDC coordination, special drawing rights, let the IMF have a role in this. There is going to be a gradual transition. And even if it isn't done from the top down, we can see the bottom up happening with the way countries are managing their reserves.
And we see it where transactions and trade are taking place, obviously in non-USD, but the larger moves in kind of country reserves and their strategic thinking over time. I mean, how long do you think that takes to kind of fully play out?
Well, these things don't necessarily happen in purely gradual, linear patterns, right? You have disruptive events. I mean, think about how in the 2000s there was a movement towards diversifying currency reserves, and the Europeans were making a big push for greater for euro reserves, but then came the financial crisis and there was a flight to safety. So whenever you have a flight to safety kind of moment in global markets, that changes the trajectory, but then it does resume that pattern of diversification. That is if there's a teleology to this, it's towards greater diversification. And again, God forbid, but a conflict of some kind, or looking at what's happening with the dollar and inflation. These are the kinds of things that countries put a lot of thought into when they're weighing what their future treasury holdings are going to be and so forth. And then of course, interest rates and on debt. I think one of the strongest shifts that has reinforced ascending Asia has been the move towards greater local currency reserves. So whether it's Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, you name the country across Asia, even developing Asian markets have been able to issue long-term local currency debt. There's been a strong take-up on that, and that has given them a lot more room to maneuver. So a gradual, decrease in dependence on the dollar is a good thing for Asia. If you're long on Asia, you want to see them decrease their dollar dependence, because interest rates can only go up, and you don't want them overexposed to that. So I'm no longer worried about taper tantrums, right, in this region. They've been announced and foretold before and not actually played out in that way. So I think Asia is less fragile than people think, and part of it has to do with this diversification into one's own currencies.
Yep.